All right, I know I've already done this once, but we are now, yes, calling the meeting to order. If we can have some order here. Never. That's a good thing. It means we're all engaged. At any rate, I am calling the meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Public Education, Tuesday, May 30th, 2017, and it's now 4:35. And I'd like to welcome everybody here, and I understand some people had a day off, sort of, not really, today, for a snow day. I love this, snow day is what it says. Whatever. And I'd like to start with just a couple of things, if I could. First, I'd like to make sure everybody knows Cam Johnson, one of our new board members who is on the Facilities Committee, has been very active, and we're very happy that you're with us. He has been with us for several weeks with the Facilities Committee, I know. I'd also like to make sure everybody knows Alice Ledford, who is our new Diana Meyer.
Those are two big shoes to fill. I will never be Diana Meyer.
We're very pleased that you're with us, of course. And next to Alice is Evan Smith, who is with Purposeville, and he is with Renaissance Square, which is next to our mighty campus. And we'll be hearing a little bit more about that later. But welcome, we're very excited about that.
Thank you.
A couple other quick things. The graduations last week were unbelievably great, and every one of them was successful. And watching all these incredible scholars march across the stage. Smiles about this big, parents who are hooting, hollering, et cetera, and the women's high heels were remarkable.
And the shoe parade is phenomenal.
The diversity of shoes, you can tell the personalities by that. At any rate, that's probably where we want to stop with the welcomes and beginning announcements. There is a thought that Yasmin and I had, which is there's so much good stuff going on in all of our campuses and in CMO, and the training sessions have been particularly good. They always are every year, but I'm always amazed at how much I don't know. And I wanted to do something a little bit different every meeting if we could, and that's what we're calling it our Uplift Spotlight. Just to bring a little bit of something to you to get you all informed and excited about what we do here for a living. To that end, I'm going to turn it over to
Sophia.
Yes. But one more announcement. Oh, sorry. This is very important.
Yeah, help our child from Uplift Summit, our entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur who is trying to raise $2,000 to go to a science fair in Boston. And he and his mother put together a cookbook. And you too can have your very first original edition for $25. And so the cashier is right here.
It's just like Girl Scout cookies. So we're going to help send them to Boston. And so if you are interested in one, come see me at the end of the meeting, please. And you can have one too. And I'll share with you my favorite recipes in it. But I love that he, instead of just reaching out and asking for support, that he created a business around it. So he's building his entrepreneurial skills as well as his science skills. Sophia, if you want to come on up, Sophia is our director of all of our IB programs. And one of the things we thought we'd start with first is a video that Aaron put together. And hopefully this is going to work, because Deborah and I tested it earlier, to let you see what 5th grade exhibition looks like at a primary school, specifically at Uplift Summit. And do you want to maybe give a quick what exhibition is, and I'll get this trying to roll.
You didn't mention that this is the first time that we were doing the spotlight.
Yes.
So, hi, my name is Sophia. Like Yasmin said, this summer I'll be the director for the IB programs that we offer here at Uplift. And what I'll talk about a little bit later is what's really neat about the IB program is they call it a culminating project at the end of every program. So at 5th grade, 10th grade, and 12th grade, there's sort of a capstone project. In 5th grade, the exhibition is a collaborative group project, and this is just a short, sort of 90-second video that shows you some of the examples.
Is the culminating project that all scholars who finish the PYC get to demonstrate their skills through. One of my favorite things that we have done here at Summit for Exhibition was allowing students to independently control and select their form of presentation as well as their topic.
Our exhibition project was about immigration and immigration path to citizenship. I picked this topic because I wanted to learn more about immigration, And with the new president we have now, I want to know what is going to change and what's going to stay the same. Our project is about fidget toys and how they help ADHD. These two guys have ADHD and I have some trouble focusing, so we try to figure out a way that we can help with that.
Exhibition is important because it helps society and helps people who maybe have problems in society that haven't been addressed yet, and it helps get those problems out there to people who don't know.
It also has social skills, so you can talk like we did with a lot of people in front of you. So when you get older, you're probably gonna be presenting lots of projects, and also that can help you communicate with other people with different forms.
This leadership role that has emerged in our students in the 5th grade class through the exhibition project is something that gets them very prepared for some of the work that they will be encountering in middle school.
I'll pull up your slides. It's on my screen now. Just a little on this one. I think I need to press
There it is.
There it is. Okay.
Okay, great. So I'm only going to take a few minutes, but I did think because IB is such a big part of our model here at Uplift that it would be useful to kind of just give a brief update on each of the programs. IB, I think, is something that really sets us apart as a network in the charter space, but also just in the United States as a school district in general. IB was actually one of the things that brought me to Uplift. Rich recruited me 5 years ago from grad school, and one of the things that really drew me, because my background was in international education, was Uplift was trying to do this sort of IB thing. So obviously in the last couple years, IB has blown up at Uplift to the point that I think that we're really sort of setting the scene a little bit. I've looked around, there's nobody, there aren't any other charter peers that are doing it to the scale that we are. So I wanted to show just kind of, there's 3 programs that we offer here at Uplift, and together they form what's called the IB Continuum. And the primary years program, which we just saw the video for, is for our primary schools. This is a program that has grown very quickly at Uplift. Last year, we had 6 schools that were authorized. This upcoming school year, 17-18, we're gonna have 5 more, which means that by the end of the next school year, 11 out of 13 of our primary schools are going to offer this program. And the only ones that aren't are our brand new schools, Gratis and obviously White Rock. The second program is the middle years program, MYP. What's interesting about MYP is that it's 6-10, so it's middle school and the first 2 years of high school. That works really well at Uplift because obviously our middle schools and high schools are at the same campus. This is the program that is the most established at Uplift. We have the most MYP programs. Right now we have 9 fully authorized programs. I'm sorry, we have 9 next year, which means that again, the only school that won't be authorized is the brand new one, Pinnacle. Every other secondary school has had this for a couple years now. The last program is the DP. This is the one that I think that we've probably heard the most about. Whenever we talk about IB, I think people tend to think the diploma program. This is the 11 and 12. And currently we only have 1 diploma program at North Hills, but this year we made the very, I would say, bold decision that all of our high schools were gonna go DP next school year. So fingers crossed, if all things go according to plan, next year we will have 10 DP programs at Uplift. Again, I can't reiterate what a huge sort of transformative movement that would be, especially because that just offers opportunities for our students that they can't get anywhere else. DP is a program that you'll see in other high schools, neighborhood high schools. I think the difference is at Uplift the fact that we're trying to make it accessible to 100% of our scholars. So it's really common if you were to go into a traditional public school, that DP might be a very niche program, in the corner of the building for 5% of the kids. Our goal is to offer this to 100% of our scholars. And again, if all things go according to plan next year, our current sophomores will be the first graduating class with that program. Something that I've done like at the board trainings before is IB is probably the program I think that aligns so well with our mission, specifically our goal that we want our students to graduate within 6 years. And there's a lot of data points out there that supports that this program, the students that go through the continuum have better outcomes in college. If you're interested in those, I'll have some cards if you want, like, you know, the research briefs and stuff. But what they asked me to talk about today was just to kind of spin more of a little bit of a narrative, some of the talking points around IB, just for you guys whenever you're out in the community, you're talking about Uplift and things that sort of set us apart. So what I thought for today is I would just give a few sort of talking points, what I think really makes an IB education. This is the biggest question I get, both from parents and educators, you know, how is this different from what we would see in a classroom? So the first thing that you should know about it is that it is an internationally recognized program. It has the word international in it, and it is a credential. So to become an IB school, there is a very rigorous vetting process. You have to actually get a formal authorization from the International Baccalaureate Organization. And what that means is they have a set of standards that they apply to all of the schools, which means that an IB school here in Texas is held to the same standards as an IB school in Toronto, or in Shanghai, or in Spain. With the understanding that there's going to be regional differences, there is a credential attached to it. In the United States, that most commonly translates to college credit. And in the state of Texas, there actually is a bill that students that graduate with the DP diploma are eligible for 24 hours of college credit, which translates to roughly 1 school year. The next is that it's an academically rigorous program. I mean, obviously it's Uplift, it's like we do a lot of academic rigor. But I think what sort of sets IB apart, and I think that like sort of this would be something to really key on, is the assessments are very different. So when we talk about academically rigorous, it's really subject specific. So I think in the state of Texas, we tend to think about assessments in terms of multiple choice booklets. But with IB, it's a lot more focused on really kids demonstrating their learning. And that might be in terms of, just to give some examples, in science, they have to design their own lab investigation. In art, they have to submit a portfolio. Even in English and Spanish, the students actually have to record themselves so we can assess both their speaking and their writing abilities. So in that sense, I think that's probably the biggest shift that we would see in our classrooms, is having teachers assess students in more, I would say, dynamic ways. It's a balanced curriculum, and by that, IB really values sort of the whole child experience, and how that plays out in Uplift is classes like art and music and PE are actually requirements for the program, and we've actually had to, in the last few years, make adjustments to our curriculum to make sure that we're meeting those requirements. So some of those changes include, we've really had to expand the number of foreign language teachers, because foreign language is actually a requirement in primary. We've had to go out and like find really strong theater teachers and drama teachers. And I think that like we see this a lot in secondary whenever parents ask for, you know, they want more band, they want more sports, they want more enrichment for the students. So IB is a great way to really meet those requirements. A holistic program that emphasizes personal growth. So there's a character development piece to IB. We want our kids to be, you know, obviously to be successful in college, to achieve. We also want them to grow up and to be decent people, right? We want them to have integrity. We want them to have a strong sense of ethics. We want them to have a strong sense of self. So this plays out really well. They have a very robust character development curriculum that aligns really well with what we're doing with our social emotional work. And finally, the 21st century global education. I think that this is the question that we get all the time, like just in education, not even charter space. It's sort of how do we know what we're doing is working? So there's a real big push to make sure everything that we're learning is relevant. It's grounded in some sort of real world context, that there's some sort of application to it. So that's what we're going to what I wanted to show today is about the 21st century global education. I mentioned earlier that there is a culminating project at the end of all of the programs. They're scaffolded to be developmentally appropriate, but the video that we saw was exhibition. So in 5th grade, the students, they get to pick a topic of interest. They come up with their own research question, they come up with their own research plan, they figure out how they're going to find the information and how they're going to present it. And this was a really cute example of students. Their topic was they wanted to do international education. And they thought that the best way to present that in a kid-friendly way was through a children's TV show. So that's why you see the puppets. You see they were recording sort of a pilot for their project. In 10th grade, they have the personal project. So we start doing teamwork in 5th grade. By the time they get to 10th grade, they're a little bit more independent. I like personal projects a lot because 15, 16-year-olds, that's a very sensitive time, you know, in your teenage years to sort of start figuring out yourself. And again, they get to pick their own topic. And this is really neat because you really get to see what the students are really passionate about. It's not necessarily an academic topic. We see things like video games and cooking, travel. This is a scholar who was really passionate about fashion. So her project was she created her own line of clothing. But you also see, again, like what really interests the students. You see a lot of like social justice projects. And some students, like they might form their own 501 organization, or they might create a proposal for city council. So that's where you started to see a little bit more independence from the students. And then finally, once we implement DP in 12th grade, the project is the extended essay. Extended essay is 4,000 words. I don't have a cute picture because it's an essay, you know. But it's a really academic paper. And what most students say, like IB students, is this is the part that makes them feel the most ready for college. If you ask any like studies, and this isn't unique to Uplift, but across the country, the biggest skill that college professors say they're missing whenever with their freshman students is the writing piece. And this is really designed to be almost like a college thesis. They have to have a faculty advisor, they have to cite their sources, they have to it's an ongoing project. So these are just examples of IB in action, just to kind of show what goes on outside of the classroom and how the students really demonstrate their learning. Some of the things that are consistent across all three of them are the fact that it's an ongoing project. This isn't something that you can knock out on a weekend. This is something that they normally do over several weeks or even a couple of months. There is a huge sort of element of students driving their own inquiry. They pick their own topics that interest them. And then they get to practice skills that you obviously need in college, and not necessarily just the academic ones, but the things like time management and organization and communication. I have a really, really cute story, because I think the skill that they even mentioned in the video is the communication piece. So a couple years ago, I was invited to meet with some 5th grade students. I'm not gonna toot my own horn, but they thought I was an expert. So they were asking me, they came ready with a list of 20 questions. We were just peppering me about all these questions about education. And what's a charter school, and what's a vocational school, all of these things. And at the end of it, so we had a great conversation, and I said, you know what? I bet if you guys went to the high school that there's a counselor that I'd be able to answer a lot of your questions about college. And they looked at each other, they looked at me very seriously. We're not allowed to go into the secondary school. And it's I told them, obviously, if you tell them it's for school, I'm sure they'd make an exception. But that was a really great reminder, the skill of talking to adults and finding resources and figuring things out. That was a 5th grade example, but we hear from our alumni counselors all the time that it doesn't occur to our students that I'm having problems, I should visit a professor during office hours, I should talk to a TA, I should go to a writing center. So those sorts of skills are things that we can't take for granted, and we have to teach them, and we have to give them experience to do so. So IB is a great sort of venue for that. All right, so the last thing I wanted to close with is, as board members, how can you sort of help us with that? And very simply, I think word of mouth, one of the things that really sets Uplift apart is the IB program. And again, if you want more information about it, there are all sorts of brochures and one-pagers. There's even translations in French and Spanish that we give out to parents. Participate in a campus interview. Like I mentioned, this upcoming school year, we have so many school visits. I think we have 15 IB visits. So this is when the IB sends a set of visitors to are going to almost essentially do an audit of the school to determine, are you an IB school or not? And we always, as a governance, we get to sit on normally we bring people from CMO like Yasmin, Rich, myself, but in the few visits where there have been board members or local advisory council members, those visits go really well. just because it sort of sends the message that this is something that we support all the way from the top. So certainly we're always looking for people to join us for those visits. Community involvement, this is something that I feel like is something we're really pushing next year. With all of those action things, you know, the interviews and giving students the chance to pick their topics, it gives something that we always need help with is I think our teachers are very connected instructionally in the education space. But you know, we always have students that want to pick, that are very interested in other industries, whether it's technology, whether it's medicine, whether it's entertainment. So anything that we can do to sort of expand our network to help connect them to industry experts, to help them find really cool internship opportunities, or give them just great learning experiences. That goes into the next one, the two kind of go hand in hand, direct scholar support. Sometimes scholars, what they really want is a chance to interview somebody who does that. So anything that we can do to connect them to like corporations or volunteers or civil leaders, that just gives them just a broader sense of perspective. And those are the things that I think really, you know, pad the resume, goes into that extracurricular piece, which is so important on the college admissions. So those are just sort of some of the, I hope, small actionable steps that you guys can do to help us with implementation of our IB program. Yeah.
Just real quick on the second bullet point with the IB interviews, we're doing 16, I believe, right? 16 authorization visits next school year. That we've never, I think the most we've ever done was like 7. So next year is the year where we'll have quite a bit. All of our 9 of our high schools will have an authorization visit. Some of our elementary and middle schools that are kind of newer, like a Triumph Heights Primary. And so if those are, we'll get a calendar out to you because we'd love to have you join us for that governance kind of conversation at those meetings.
Any questions? Well, I just really appreciate everything that you've been doing. The leadership that you've shown, it's been remarkable. The growth is unbelievable, as we all know. You just heard it. So thank you so very much. And thanks to our videographer, Aaron, for all you do to help in every way. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're back to the agenda as laid out and really to the academic.
So I know that we have a lot to talk about, so I'll try to make this super quick and get through the slides. You should all have the slides on paper or on email that was sent out. There's really kind of 2 parts to this academic update. The first part is some of the early returns that we have received from our 5th and 8th grade and high school STAR testing. Those are grades that are tested in March so that we're able to get the data to schedule students for summer school for those students who don't pass. So I'll share a little bit about that and then share a little bit about where our high school seniors performed. So I'm going to talk about our 5th and 8th grade STAR data. At a high level, we saw some steady increases in elementary and middle school math. Our middle schools performed pretty well and outperformed state averages in reading and had very strong results in middle school algebra. Our high schools had strong results in biology and U.S. history. There are some significant areas for growth, though. In elementary and primary, our literacy scores went down 5%, and I think it was 64% that passed the initial time around. And we did see a decrease in our English 1 and 2 results as well. And so that's going to be a big area of where we're going to be focused on in the summer. Our 5th graders did have a chance to retake, those who failed in March had a chance to take a May administration, and we were able to get about 140 students, 140 5th graders to pass. And so we'll have the rest of the students, I think that ate into it by about 8 to 10% in terms of the percentage going to summer school. So about a quarter of the kids who failed in March passed in May. So we're working with a smaller group that'll be in our summer schools. In our summer schools, we're doing something a little bit different this year, where, as I shared, we're partnering with urban teachers, and we have urban teacher, resident teachers that are going into their first year of record. As part of their programming through Johns Hopkins, they have to do a summer kind of residency. So we're actually hosting all the urban teachers that are slated for this region, working in our summer school program. So we're really excited about that. In previous years, summer schools have been, hiring teachers for summer school has been a little bit of a challenge. And going into next school year, our group of residents working with Relay, our new resident program that we'll put online next fall. So we'll have 2 residency programs. That will also have a summer component. So hopefully in the long term, we'll be able to use our new teacher pipeline programs to enhance some of our summer school support programs, particularly for those students, as I shared, who did not make the grade as part of the state success initiative. These are tests that they have to pass to be promoted to the next grade. High level for our senior class. We got some really great news. We finally compiled all the ACT data. A lot of our students take the ACT at the end of junior year, and some are happy with their scores and some are not. And so periodically the seniors, as they're applying, will take the extra fall and winter administrations to increase their ACT scores. So when we reported out on ACT scores last summer, we were reporting it on where the junior class finished. And we were able to pick up an additional point. So this is the highest ACT composite we've ever had at Uplift. A 22.5 was the composite. It was an increase from a 21.7. And we had 47% with a college readiness score of a 21 last year's senior class. This year's senior class was at a 62% college ready. So we're really excited about that, and it confirms, as Sophia talked about, this work that we're doing with the IB diploma program. Our ACT speaks to just the growth that we've had across all campuses by the time our students become juniors and seniors, and we feel that to take the proverbial next step, the IB program will be the program that'll do that for our juniors and seniors. How did this translate to college access? On the executive summary page, on the second page, there's a data point that I would love for you to remember. When you think about all the students that we graduated over the last week, a good percent, most of them, 80% of them, qualify for federal financial aid. And out of all those seniors that qualify for federal financial aid, 68% of those students got into a selective college or university, which is incredibly high. And that's a new data metric that we're tracking. We define a college, a selective college by, if they're on the Barron's list, the book that has all the competitive schools in it, as well as any college or university that has a graduation rate of 50% or higher for their ethnicity. So that would put, let's say, a school like Texas Tech or A&M, UT, those universities have Hispanic and African American graduation rates in the high 60s, low 70s. That list would not include, let's say, UT Arlington or UNT. Those are schools that graduate schools in the mid to the high 40s. So just kind of a ballpark reference point. And then 98% of students that scored a 21 and were financial aid eligible for FAFSA, 98% of those students got into a selective school. So why this is important, we want to make sure all of our seniors have great choices as it comes to college. With our increase in ACT scores, with serving a demographic that's going to qualify for financial aid, we want to make sure that they're getting into selective universities, and they are. Does that mean they're matriculating? No. That means they got in. What defines that is financial aid processes, and we're still working through that. Even though the financial aid deadline this year was usually, if I'm sure when I applied for financial aid when I was a kid, I think that application was due in January. This year they moved it up to October. We were hoping that by moving up the deadline, we'd get the financial aid awards earlier so that our students, when they got into, let's say, a liberal arts school, a university, and a public university, they could make a meaningful decision at the table. That did not play out. We got a lot of the private schools, they sent their financial aid forms early in April, and we are still getting kind of rolling financial aid information from a lot of our state institutions. And so the timing hasn't really worked out. It's kind of hard to ask a family to put down a deposit for the private school you got into, and wait to make an official decision when the financial aid comes in, let's say mid-June. Those deposits are meaningful 500 plus deposits. So that's not, that's where we have to work with our university partners to say, hey, can we waive it? They haven't made an official decision yet because they're waiting on aid from a public university. That song and dance has been pretty rough this year, and kind of a strategy going into next year is trying to partner with our local universities, public universities, so they could potentially fast track some of the decisions, especially when a student has a competing offer from another university. Just a couple of highlights. If you go down to slide 6, again, 5th grade math, we saw an increase. Slide 7, you'll see where we had that decrease. There's some new name changes. We use the term now approaches grade level. We used to use the term passed. And then master's grade level would be an advanced score. So the state has kind of new rebranding their terms. We do have a couple of schools, especially in 5th grade reading, that we're pretty focused on, especially for summer school. We had Uplift, Mighty, Pinnacle, and Heights were a couple of the schools in the 40s to 50s, Meridian as well. They did, as I shared, eat into that. They did increase those pass rates, but we still have a good number of students, 30 to 40 kids at those schools coming for summer school starting next week. If you look at slide 11, 8th grade reading, our 8th grade reading scores were, they did fall 4 percentage points, but we were higher than the state average, which is really exciting. We did get some returns on our 8th grade retesters in May, so we probably ate into that another 8 or 9 percentage points. So I think right now we're probably at a 90% pass rate on 8th grade reading, with a few kids fewer kids coming into summer school. And mostly those students are coming from Uplift Heights, where we had kind of our low pass rate of 69%. But most of the other schools were healthily in the upper 70s, mid 80s. And again, they ate into that with this last testing run in May. I'm going to jump around to slide 14, where we're looking at our English 1 and 2 pass rates. This is something that did catch us by a little bit of a surprise, and usually our pass rates are healthily in the 70s, 80s, but we did have a couple of schools not hit the mark with English 1 and 2. That's something that our high school managing directors, our high school directors, and we need to huddle around. We had a couple of schools, particularly Mighty and Luna Heights, which had some lower scores, and these are assessments that the students have to pass. So we do have, those cohorts of 9th graders are in the 140 to 150 student ranges. So we're looking at about 60, 70 students coming in for summer school. We are hoping that with a tight summer school program, by the end of June, we'll be able to eat into this pass rate a little bit more. We also do realize that we need to think about our intervention models at those schools, assuming that a percentage of the kids pass after summer school and a percentage not passing. When they do start the school year, we need to make sure that there are interventions in place to get these students ready by the time there's an assessment cycle in December, and then at the end of the year. And we need to make sure that our pass rates are stronger for retesters of these exams. We're finding that our retesters pass around 25% of our retesters pass, but that's not enough to move the needle to ensure that they are, on minimum, getting to a high school graduation plan.
And Rich, just one other thing to know, you would think of those 3 campuses, those would be 3 of the ones that have the highest number of brand new 9th graders coming in. So really figuring out what that intervention support model looks like is important if it's already the first time we use it in one of our classrooms.
Jump to slide 15. End of course in algebra. About 70% of our students in the 8th grade take algebra as a middle school students. And as you look, our middle school pass rates for the algebra end of course exams are really high. Students who take 8th grade math and take algebra for the first time as freshmen, or new freshmen coming in, as Yasmin pointed out, those are students that are, in terms of grade level, they're not as math ready. And so you do see fewer students in high school take that exam, but lower pass rates. And again, we want to, year to year, make sure that all students at some point pass the algebra end of course exam, even though the lion's share of our students pass it in 9th grade. We did, on slides 16 and 17, we did share our freshman and sophomore high school students' pre-ACT scores. We averaged a 16 on the 9th grade pre-ACT and an 18.2 in the 10th grade pre-ACT. Usually our students hit a 3.5 point gain in junior year and pick up half a point to a point by senior year. So both our 9th and 10th grade cohorts are on track to hit a 22 on their ACT. However, I think if we get the interventions right for the students who are probably on the lower end of that spectrum, we should see that number start to increase a little bit, especially at the schools that we mentioned, Luna, Mighty, and Heights, which tended to have some lower band scores. Slide 18 is kind of the exciting slide broken down, exciting news point of the 22.5 senior class ACT broken down by campuses. When you look at schools like Summit and Williams that exceeded the college readiness benchmark, Heights with their first go around, just a 1/10 of a point off of 21. All the schools except for Hampton at a 20, and Hampton was at a close 19.8. We've never, we now know that the floor right now is the 20 that we need to at minimum hit. We want to make sure that that's being moved up, and it's just exciting to see just the percentage of college-ready students at all of our schools just hitting a metric that'll get them into a competitive school. We did share this little dashboard on slide 19 and 20. 19 just has the number of seniors, percent 3.0 or higher, percent with college-ready ACT scores, and again, these college-ready, or the percentage of students who got into selective institutions. So this is just a dashboard for you to see how our seniors did. This is the highest award in terms of financial aid that we've received. We did increase the senior class a little bit, but just really proud of the work that our Road to College team and our high school teams did. If there's really anything to highlight here, just the percentage of kids who got into selective schools is just really incredible for kids to have those options. On slide 20, we did kind of a plus minus in terms of did we grow in percentage or did we drop compared to last year's class. As you know, there were some transitions on our central RTC team with Amy Rincon, who was our senior director, who transitioned in that case with her family. And we were, we had a lot of people just step up, minus the senior director. We just recently hired a new senior director a couple of weeks ago. We're really excited for that. So being, kind of a senior director down, overseeing this operation, we wanted to, just look at, do we improve? And in a lot of areas we did improve in terms of seniors being accepted to four-year colleges, total awards in financial aid. There is just kind of one caveat, peak, which does seem to have a few metrics in the red. That is because they reduced the number of seniors that graduated. There was a bubble class, a 5-section class that went through peak last year. and it's back down to 4. So there was this kind of bubble group. So those numbers in red are not because Peak underperformed. It's because they just had less students per their growth model. But overall, just very happy with how our campus teams executed this year, and really focused a lot on making sure that students had competitive options, and took the time to research the colleges and universities that had strong Black and Hispanic 4 to 6 year graduation rates. And I think that set a little bit of a mindset shift in terms of kids trying to squeeze out another point or two on their ACTs, turning in strong applications. And again, one of the things that we're continuing to do is to monitor college matriculation during the summer. We're hosting some local events where we're doing groups of students to kind of do their orientation at the same time. At Commerce in Arlington, we'll have a group of students go. We're still keeping track of financial aid. This is the first year where we're tracking financial aid by individual students and doing some data analysis on that so that we can become a little bit more prescriptive with where students and families should apply given their kind of financial status, and knowing the history of awards that our colleges give to us. And that way we can be a little bit more calculated in positioning a kid and a family to getting into the school that is appropriate to their level of academics and their aspirations, but also know that the financial aid package that they will get is going to set them up for long-term success. Overall, in terms of this Road to College work, our teams did a great job. In Amy's absence, a lot of people stepped up. Our high school managing directors, our directors centrally, Denise and Brittany, who you probably saw at our graduations. And I think now that we have some really positive data returns, a new director who's going to be leading that team. I think we're going to make the little adjustments, being a little bit more strategic about our partnerships with local universities that are going to meet the needs of kind of the middle 50 of the students. I personally spent some time at A&M Commerce with their head of student support, and just really trying to understand how we can partner a little bit tighter so that the students that we send to Commerce are going to be set up for success. I'm going to be doing the rotations this summer with all of the area colleges where we're having multiple students go to, and we'll be hopefully moving that 4 to 6 year graduation rate. It's around a 45 right now that we project, getting that closer and closer to a 70 over the next few years.
Okay, wow, fabulous. Questions? So, again, major congratulations on the ACT scores and the acceptances of the selected colleges. So, fabulous work. Thank you. Okay, ready for the finance update. Stacy.
Okay, as Yasmin noted in her, when she sent out pre-read materials, you did not have a finance pre-read, and I just want to give you a little bit more background on that scenario and why that was the case. So we had sort of a last minute, we were thinking we were kind of done with 17-18 budget planning and 16-17 forecast, and then in the course of kind of the normal conversations that we have with TEA every now and then on determining eligibility of types of costs we put on various programs, we discovered 2 programs, our state compensatory education program and our English as a second language program that required some adjustments. And the types of costs, the types of positions that we can charge to these programs. And so we've been, over the course of the last week plus, trying to readjust accordingly and put together not only a forecast for 16-17, what we think will end the year, as well as a budget for 17-18 that works for 17-18 that will work for future years. Because as you know, we just completed our 2017A bond pricing and includes projections, that assumptions that now might need to be tweaked. So we've been working on diligently on that. We'll review the slides. You'll get what normally is a more robust discussion in the May meeting about our 17-18 budget. I think we're just going to be able to give you sort of the highlights right now of where we're at, and then come back for probably more in-depth discussion in June. So with that said, here's our dashboard slide. The projected enrollment is pretty similar to where we were at the April board meeting. I think we're down 3, and that has remained yellow. Attendance has come down, I think, a 10th from a projected standpoint. We were projecting 96.6. Now we're thinking we're going to be right up on budget. So that's still green. Cash is still green. Expecting to end in the 70-day range or higher. And then expense management is where we've flipped that from green to yellow. And two main causes of the roughly $1.4 million swing on the expense side to where we were last time. So I'm going to, our days cash on hand being at 70, I'm not going to walk through any of the cash slides, although I'm happy to take any questions. But I thought we'd just start with our 17-18 expense forecast. We are down just a little bit from the state revenue forecast from where we were last time. Federal revenues are down a little bit as well. Not major moves that have me concerned in any regard. The biggest change is down here in program. If I can see one. Yeah. In program non-payroll, where that's up 1.7 million. That's related to the state compensatory education program and ESL program that I just mentioned. The big changes within the programs are costing us about $1 million or so right now. Examples of things that we've discovered we can't charge to these programs that mean we now have to charge them to our general ed program, which means that we might have to pick up some more costs to meet program spending thresholds in those programs. We have in the ESL program almost 1 per campus, so 14 ESL coordinators that handle a lot of training for the network and ESL training, do pretty much all the compliance work related to the program. Those ESL coordinators actually can't be charged to the ESL program. It sounds strange to me, but that's the case. In addition, under the state compensatory education program, that program funds our robust social emotional counseling program. The program director and 2 program coordinator, 1 program coordinator for this year, 2 for next year, cannot be charged to state comp ed through, or as we have done in the past. There are a handful of teachers' aides across the network, a large, more than a handful, quite a few. The guidance that we've received to date is that those teacher aides, to the extent that not 100% of the classroom is at risk, which scholars are identified as either at risk or not, and therefore ineligible for receiving or being part of the state compensatory education program. To the extent that aides serve a classroom that is not 100% at-risk scholars, then that fraction of the aide can't be charged to the program.
Stacy, just to interject for just a minute, because I think it might have got left out in your opening comments. So for these 2 fund sources before, the way we had treated them and had been able to treat them and the way other peers had treated them was for whole school support program expenses. And now this new guidance that we are getting is that they can only be used for direct support to those targeted student groups that are at risk. So this example Stacy's giving, where before a teacher aide could serve an entire classroom where maybe 75% of the kids were at risk, but we could still charge it because 100% of the children aren't, then that is what's throwing this. And so hence where we had coded things before is completely getting flipped on its head with this new guidance. We of course are not the only ones in this boat. We were just one of the first to discover this new guidance.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily even new guidance, it's a different interpretation of guidance that's been out there. So this concept of targeted assistance versus a school-wide program is a federal concept, actually. It's not a state concept. So the federal Title I program says, okay, if you have meet certain requirements, then your program, as long as it's reaching all of these at-risk scholars, could also benefit anybody else sort of as an extra benefit. That same concept of targeted assistance in school-wide does not exist for the state comp ed program, although the state comp ed and Title I programs are very similar and kind of are meant to complement each other. In this case, the feedback we're getting right now is that we need to think more of the targeted assistance lens versus the school-wide lens. That's what we've heard from Region 10, who suppose is getting their feedback from TEA. TEA is announced a year or so ago a new special allotments monitoring program. And this stricter point of view we think is due to their implementation of this new monitoring program, where they're going to look at, where they haven't as much before, are you spending as much as you need to on these programs on your scholars? Are the types of costs you're allocating, are they truly allocable to the program? Are they allowed on the program? So taking a lot closer look at program funding from the state. We've reached out to peer district friends and charter peers to say, hey, does this resonate with y'all? Does this sound like guidance that you've gotten before, that you've asked for it? We've heard some say, like, we've always sort of thought of state comp ed as if your Title I program is school-wide, that your state comp ed, you could think of it as a school-wide program as well. So we're not alone in our previous thinking that we could use that school-wide lens for state comp ed. We had a call with a number of peers Friday afternoon, a number of charter peers, and their guidance was to go directly to TEA instead of working through the Region Service Center for counsel on how we should approach this. They've had some experiences where we've had conflicting answers from Region 10 and TEA, and so, or the other region that they were in. This is not actually Region 10 where they received conflicting advice, but we're going to take that step ourselves and go directly to TEA with some of the questions about 16-17 and whether the approach that we're taking actually has to be implemented for 16-17, or could it potentially be delayed until 17-18, which would mean that things would shape up a little bit more in our forecast, how we showed it in April versus how it's shaping up right now.
Stacey, just one other connection on that, right, is that for some of these fund programs like ESL, there's a certain percentage of the dollars you have to spend in a given year. So for 16-17, right, Stacey and team had a formal plan of how to spend them, and if now some of those things aren't allowable, not only do we have to shift them back up to general ed funding, but we have to go figure out how to make sure we're also hitting the percentage of spending that we need to in that given category.
Yeah.
So there's almost a twofold effect that happens.
Yep.
So we're talking about how much in total?
Right now, we've got $1 million of additional expense that we've assumed for 16-17.
And it hits the expense, not, I would have thought it was a reduction in revenue.
It's not a reduction in revenue. We're still going to get the same amount of program revenue from the state, but what we're spending in program non-payroll and or personnel could vary depending on whether it's allowable spending under the program or not. Not sure if that makes sense. So we have to spend, in this example, the spending threshold for state comp ed is 52%. The state gives you $1,000, you need to spend $520 directly on the program. So to the extent that something in our current plan that get us to that 520, in fact, we try to get to 550 to try to give ourselves a little bit of cushion to be not in jeopardy of missing the threshold. If the 100 of that 550 has to come out, that's new spending for the program, or that has to get supported by Gen Ed, plus we have to get ourselves back up to at least 520. That's what Yasmin was getting at. So there's, fortunately, we actually we have found a way to move some expenses that were ESL over into comp ed to fill the expenses that were vacated that we have had to move out to.
But it's still $1 million swing.
Net impact to our total expenses is $1 million.
And I mean, I guess in terms of just, is this something that, you can go with, advocate, TEA with the other schools or?
Yes.
Yeah. This is something I think that we can talk about the practicalities of how this special allotments monitoring program and the advice we're getting impacts the schools. Like the ability, my understanding is that part of the reason of the concept of the school-wide versus targeted assistance is if the majority of your work is really benefiting a lot of at-risk scholars, and some not at-risk scholars do get some benefit, that you don't have to go through the steps it would take to figure out exactly that targeted assistance sort of portion and do the math on every single teacher's aide, for instance, to look at every classroom that they serve and figure out the right fraction to back out of state comp ed. That's just not practical for every district around the country, around the state to do that. So absolutely, that's an instance where I think we could go back to the state as a group of charters and or charter district friends and say, hey, this is the impact of the guidance we're getting now that seems like different guidance than we think we would have gotten before. We never asked these questions before.
Well, not only different guidance, but from a practical standpoint, I mean, you wouldn't hire all these additional teachers if you didn't need additional support for those at-risk kids.
Absolutely. We're trying to meet the goal of the program of minimizing the risks of at-risk scholars.
This is not just for charters, this is for all?
Yeah.
I mean, in theory, this guidance, would apply to every district. Anybody who asks should be getting this same answer.
So our peers at Grand Prairie ISD said they've been following the interpretation the same exact way that we had been following it previously. So I do think it is a perfect topic for the District Charter Alliance, which we're a part of, which is an advocacy group that combines districts and charters on a specific issue. And we flagged it for Addie. She's obviously just coming off of session that just ended 24 hours ago. But we already have this as an item for her to help engage in, which is easier because it doesn't seem like it has to go. Like, we just need to take it to TEA and get it to the right person.
My guess is they don't even.
They might not even
They don't
understand the
even know
negative
the
impact.
impact.
I agree. I 100% agree. They probably don't realize the negative impact they're
I
having.
think it's unintended.
Yep. I think that can very well be true.
I think,
Yeah.
we're going to ask the same question. We just talked about it.
No, go ahead.
I'm a bit, I must be confused because I don't understand how school's out and we have to spend another $1 million on this past school year. Is what I'm hearing. How do you do that?
Well, there's two ways. We can examine costs that haven't been allocated to the program thus far. That might be eligible, that would be eligible for them to get them under the program. Or that's work that we're literally doing right now, like to figure out are there expenses that we have been conservative on whether or not they would be program eligible and allowable under the program, or yes.
Then that's just a reallocation. It doesn't have a bottom line effect.
True.
But you're not, that's why I was asking, shouldn't it's going to reduce what you get reimbursed. right?
The state comp ed program is not a reimbursement program, so they give us a certain amount of money.
Okay,
And-
you certified money. What
And,
happens?
Yeah.
If you,
Give me your example.
if you don't spend the 520, they look at that 520, that 52% threshold on a 3-year rolling basis. So they will take the last few years, and to the extent you were consistently under 520, then I believe you would be in a position to give back.
So you have to get 600, right, in the next year. It has to, if you don't hit it in one, you have to smooth it out.
So we can spend it in the future and still get credit. If we
Yes.
had
It's
this.
part of the 3-year average.
Yes.
Okay.
How long, I mean, assuming we want to try to do it within this year, how long do we have to do it? Is it the end of June or is it?
End of June.
In
That's what I
June,
thought.
when we have to close out the year.
Yeah. that's what I thought.
And where you'd have a bottom line effect is if
Yeah.
you can't reallocate we can't reallocate 100% of the cost to have it be covered.
No, but are there other costs that can be?
Well, that's what I'm saying, that's the exercise of cross-mapping they're doing, because if they can't cross-map 100%, then you will have an issue where.
But I still think the question was clearly answered in my mind. I mean, part of it is reclassification or reallocation. So, but to the extent that you exhaust that, are you seriously talking about spending more money in a limited category in the month that's remaining in this school year in order to try to reach the threshold? And what kind of expenses would you be talking about of pretty significant magnitude in a month, and to what real purpose would they be put? I mean, I don't think that's not clear to me at all.
Schools out, they wouldn't be put to a purpose for impacting scholars this year. The purpose would be to meet the spending threshold requirements set by the state. Whether or not
But what, I mean,
But
what
you've
type
spent
of
the
Example
money,
of
right?
Something you could
that-
spend in June, curriculum.
yeah,
maybe.
curriculum materials.
Yeah, but
So that would be not
the
payroll.
expenditures that would impact the next school year.
From an academic.
From an
Next year,
from an actual
save,
point,
and you've
from
got
a
a whole
practical
year to make it
standpoint.
up. Got it, okay.
It's not just flushing money.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's
So you
all.
can buy school books for next year, curriculum for
Right.
next year, prepaid bonuses, what, blah, blah, blah.
But that just raises the bar for the next year to try to meet the
If
threshold.
you got
correct?
12 months to.
Yeah, to the extent your pulling expenses you would have, we planned for in 17,
Yeah.
18, and,
Thanks.
we wouldn't, I mean, ideally, we would, ideally, this is far from ideally, so ideally, we wouldn't be spending we wouldn't be doing this at the end of the year. During the program year, which matches our fiscal year, we would have spent these funds early in the year if we thought they were at risk, so that the scholars would get the benefit of them for this year.
I think Yasmin said something about looking at a 3-year average. Is this the last year of our 3-year?
It's rolling.
It's rolling, okay, so is there any potential for them to say, if you didn't spend this, go back and look at those other years and want to claw back those as well? Is there any open years that they can go back to?
That's a great question.
Yeah,
Go
I'm not
backwards.
clear on the answer to that one.
We're not gonna ask that question. We learned a lesson from asking questions.
They've given some training on this special allotments monitoring program, and that's where we first learned of that, hey, some of what we've historically done could be at risk of, no pun intended, could be called that. And they haven't explained a lot, from my understanding, on how exactly it works in the 3-year look-back window. But in theory, we could be at 50% this year, depending on what our prior year was, prior 2 years, and feel good about it. We'd prefer to sort of meet it, not rely on a 3-year rolling average, but just meet it every year independently. And that's kind of how we approach it from a budgeting standpoint. I'm sorry, Jack, I didn't hear
Do you know what the prior 2 years were?
North of 52, I don't know for sure.
But the assumption is they include the same expenses that were disallowed.
Definitely.
Yes. And another charter district has received guidance that you don't need to make these changes for 16, 17. You can wait until 17, 18. That's not the guidance that we've received, so that's one of the things we're going to go back directly to TEA to get
I'm going to talk to who they talk to.
Yes.
Like a little bit.
The training, real quick, Dawn, sorry, the training, evidently the slides that were presented at this training as they sort of rolled around the regions and rolled out this new program, they changed from meeting to meeting. So as they rolled it out and got questions at one region and said, well, we don't really have the answers to that, then the presentation changed. And so I don't know where we fell in the timeline of presumably 20 regional meetings, but if we got early, the advice that came later may be different than the advice that was given early on. Dawn, you had a question?
So you kind of answered my question, like how was this revealed to us and then changed? And
How did this happen? Initially in a training program rolled from TEA, put on and hosted sort of by the Region Service Center. And then I just reached out informally to some charter peers. Was at a meeting at Grand Prairie early last week and asked them their experiences. And then we had a call with 3 or 4 charters on Friday afternoon. And that's where the advice of like just go direct to TEA with your questions.
And you'll be doing that soon?
My team, yeah, I think they were going
I think the
that
answer,
direction on Friday.
the main thing you want to do is alert everybody to it. We're going to get it figured out. And there's some moving pieces and nobody's got a good explanation because it's so fresh. But we'll get it figured out and it'll be subject to the next board.
And Anisha on my team is our Senior Director of Finance unit that owns this budget and projection process. She's working actively with the program leaders on ESL and Comp Ed to figure out, okay, what could we do if in the remaining 31 days of the fiscal year we had to go spend more money. What would that look like?
Any further questions before we move on? And thank you to the Finance Committee, who I know has been plugged in on this because we all rely on those members of the board. So appreciate that.
So that's a 16, 17 update.
Needs to share 17.
Yeah.
Oh,
There-
just the high level.
This
So,
is more.
This is where we.
I was like, he has
But
one
wait,
more
there's
piece.
more.
Sorry.
So I realize this is something that you would normally.
We'll only spend a little bit of time on it because it could change in June.
This is gonna evolve over the course of the next 31 days, or how many days till our board meeting. I don't know what day it is, but this is based on what we know now and how we're approaching these various areas that have come into question. This is kind of what fiscal 18 looks like. This is a page that you normally do get in a handout and can spend some time looking at on pre-read. It's an eye chart on a slide to look at on the wall behind me, I know. I think the main thing I would call out is just sort of this coverage ratio of 1.72 is very close to, we actually had, it's a little bit higher by a few basis points than what we had in projections that we were just part of our bond package. A couple of moving parts and really first answer or address the question, well, why is it so high compared to the 1.3 or so that we think we're going to end the year at 17? So included in local revenue of almost 15 million, another $390 per scholar is the timing of the recognition of Hammond grant revenues. There's actually 6.2 million of revenue in this 14.9 that is Hammond revenue. So the recognition of the revenue is tied to the opening of the last 2 Hammond grant schools. That's happening FY18. Without the Hammond grant in there, it would be coverage would be at a 1.38. So very much in line with kind of where we've been the last couple of years from a budgeting standpoint, 1.3 to 1.35 range. Without trying to dive into a lot of this. I can just say that we have factored in the changes I've talked about to the programs. The social emotional counsel program, sort of leadership has moved into gen ed. ESL coordinators have moved into gen ed. We do have our charter expansion grant factored in, and that's driving a $3.3 million increase in, or of the increase in federal revenues. That's $3.3 million of that growth is our charter expansion grant, which is funding a lot of our resident teacher pipeline with Urban Teacher Center and Relay. We are factoring a slight decrease in our Title II revenues. And we've been told we should expect our Title I revenues to go up some, but we don't know exactly how that's going to work yet. We do have our pre-K revenues are factored into the state revenue here. We had that miss last year that we called out with FY17. All the times that we reviewed the income statement for FY17, we've called out the upside in state revenues due to not having pre-K in the budget there and here. As is a line item for pre-K expenses. We have moved with the adjustments on the programs that we've been talking about, we've moved our target for hitting the spending threshold to exactly 52% on state comp ed and ESL, down from 54 and 55, I believe. So to make 17-18 to work like we needed to, we've pulled down we're not going to overshoot that spending threshold as we had planned to before. Those are some of the highlights. I wanted to let you know that there is a draft of a budget out here. There's no way we can sort of get through it at this point, looking at it on the wall, but we can circulate these as a follow-up. Knowing that any questions you generate by looking at this, you'll have a new one to look at with the pre-read for June.
That's a good segue to a question.
Yeah.
The enrollment, are we being more conservative in the budget this year than we were last year on our enrollment, or are we increasing the factor at which we over-enroll?
I think we've gotten better at doing over-admittance that hopefully leads to, in the spring, we admit lottery scholars off the lottery, and then we are being more diligent in the early follow-up and trying to keep them engaged, plan to keep them engaged so that they do enroll on the first day of school. So it's definitely more aggressive in that standpoint. We are keeping the 96.5 attendance rate assumption in place. Any other early questions on the budget? There's one good piece of news we can talk about from a finance standpoint. So we priced our 2017A bonds, which will close tomorrow. We priced those a couple of weeks ago, and this is just sort of the history of a couple of numbers here. The all-in interest rate, which is going to factor in where the market is on any given point in time, what our credit worthiness is at any given point in time, and we'll see that sort of continue to dip. And then the number that is really exciting and where we see access to the permanent school fund paying off is this number that's charted on the red line. That is the spread to what's called the MMD, the Municipal Market Data Index, which looks at the 30-year bonds and what are those on the Treasury market, what does a AAA rated muni go for, and then what is ours, and ours is the spread to the AAA, and that being a 38 basis point gap versus it was a 111 point gap the prior year. That's where PSF has really shrunk the gap for us. So that's the exciting part to close the presentation on finances.
So I don't know if you know, on the 2012 series, when would those be called?
2022.
So they're all 10-year follow-ups.
I don't know if the Q bonds are callable. That 2012 was when we issued the Q-SCAPs. I don't know if those are callable, and that was 20 million of that $82 million issuance. 20 or 25 million. Those are, we looked at those, whether those would make sense to do the refunding, advanced refunding on those. There are actually a few maturities of the 2012s that, you know, might have made sense, but we didn't want to cherry pick a few out of there. We will look at that when we, depending on where rates are when we price the 17B bonds. Any other questions? Thank you.
Well, again, congratulations on the bonds, particularly. That's fabulous news.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. That's a lot of work on a lot of people. At least, if I could, in my excitement to sell cookbooks, I neglected to get the minutes approved. So, please. The minutes were emailed out to you and have been reviewed, no doubt. I need to have a motion to have approved.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Thank you very much. On to governance. Ricardo?
Thank you. So today we have two guest speakers who are both Campus Advisory Council chairs. They're going to talk a little bit about their experience with their schools. George Canott with Triumph and Dexter Freeman with North Hills. So, Dexter, you want to kick it off?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Dexter Freeman, Campus Advisory, currently co-chair with Angela Barley there at North Hills in Irving. And so just to give you a couple things, I've been on a couple of things happening at North Hills. In July, I believe July 31st, we did an appreciation for teachers during In-Service Week, where we provided popsicles for the teachers from Steel City Pops. And that was a real nice treat for the teachers there, and that was really a fun event that we were able to do. And even just to make you a little bit familiar with RCAC, it's about 5 individuals serving on RCAC there at North Hills, and we try to meet quarterly. And our last meeting was in April, and so we're working to schedule the next one. But I'm really excited about the students that are coming out of North Hills this year. We're at the graduation on Saturday. Thank you all for that. We're in attendance, and it was even emotional, right, for the students there, but even for some of us in the crowd, because they had these moments where some of the administrators from Uplift were on stage able to hand off the diplomas to their students, and so we're a little bit choked up in the crowd. So it was really nice.
Thanks for not crying.
Yeah, like leaning over to each other. And so, but it was really a proud moment even to see. I mean, just the caliber of talent and skills that are coming out of our schools, how we're really equipping our students, looking at the schools that they're going to. It was really, really exciting and proud moment to see there. We had 116 in the graduating class this year, and out of that, over $17.2 million were awarded in scholarships from that class. 11 students, national merit, and also, I wish Sophia was still here, 69% of the senior class pursued IB programming this year, which was the highest to date for North Hills. And so that was another really accomplishment for North Hills there as well. And so we're really proud of that. And also 25.7 was the average ACT for the class of 2017. So really proud about the students at North Hills there. And we're really trying to work to continue to be a sounding board there also for support for the administrators there, for Heather and her team, and just really trying to support that school as much as we can as the CAC there. So more to come in the future. So we're really excited about the things happening there in North Hills and Irving.
Well, great. Thanks, Dexter. George, you want to share a little bit?
Sure. Uplift Triumph is a primary school, so we don't have the graduation rates. We don't know any of those stats.
100%.
100%, right. And we were the first group, I guess. We didn't know anything about Uplift at all when we started this. We came in and asked if we could work with Triumph and Christine Dennison as principal. So the three of us, John Becker, Rick Scripps, and myself, and we all in our 60s. We don't know the first thing about little kids and teachers and parents and carpool and all those things. So we actually kind of operate it more like a board of directors, the three of us. And the principals, Christine is 29, I think, years old.
We don't talk about age of our staff.
You're
So this is my
20's very
two-seater
young.
record.
Right, 29 is wonderful, okay, by the way. But very young people who are doing a great job that are managing hundreds of kids, all these parents, all these teachers, all these things. I know when I was that young, I would have been like, oh, my head's spinning on so many issues. So we meet with Christine, and she'll bring the deans in sometimes. We always do it for lunch. We bring lunch in, and she prepares the agenda, and we'll talk about tests a lot. The latest STAR test. The last agenda I have here, we talked about the Great Place to Work survey and how they did on that, and we'll talk about hiring a lot. We'll listen to them. She has a managing director, Priscilla, who she loves, but I think we play a different role, just a sounding board, and we listen a lot, we talk, go through it, and it seems to really work for her. We hope it works for Hannah, who Christine is moving to White Rock Hills, and to start that school. But Triumph's numbers have been superb the last couple of years. We don't take the credit, Christine does, but hopefully we played a role in listening to her. And again, I don't want to tout our horn, but I just got this yesterday from Christine, because she is moving on. Hannah's going to be terrific too. But I thought her little note to us was a good way to understand kind of the role we play, which is kind of a softer role than some of the others might be. And this is George, but it could be John or Rick, because same thing. I can't thank you enough for all of the support you've given me and Uplift Triumph over the past 4 years. Having you as a mentor and thought partner have been very invaluable, and you have shaped me as a leader through all of your wisdom and advice. That's a mistake there, wisdom and advice. Even when I felt like I was doing a terrible job, your confidence in me gave me the boost that I needed to stick with it and keep going. Thank you for always inspiring me to do my very best. I've learned as much from you over the years, and will take all that I've learned with me to uplift White Rock Hills. Thank you, Christine. So it just gives you a flavor of, we go in and listen, what do they want to talk about the agenda. We do have another component we do, because we started this way, we actually give money to that school. We run through Stacy. It's not going sideways. but we donate money, and then she can spend it however she wants, but she gives us a report. It's usually used for staff things. For instance, she has a Christmas party at her house, and our money pays for all the food and beverages at that party. White Rock, the fifth grade this year, first time they've had fifth grade, went to Fort Worth to the Amon Carter Museum, and we paid for all the buses and the lunches over there out of our funds. So it's again, money she can use for things like that. So, and that helps us feel like, hey, we're more engaged and involved. So that's our report. That's how we do it. Okay?
Thank you. Wow. Well, all of the CACs are different, and thank you both for being chairs, and others who are here. It's a very important function, obviously, and they're very different, and they're all very successful, so we appreciate all that you do. At this point, we're going to be talking about advocacy. Danelle, you want to say anything before Yasmin cries?
Yasmin cry.
You know,
North Hills graduation.
What I want to know is we're having an advocacy committee meeting on the 12th, either at 8 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock at night. And I've heard from a few people, but not from many. So I really want you to be at that meeting, because we really need to start thinking about 2 years from now, if you can believe it, and how we're going to structure that, and although we weren't as successful as we wanted to be, I just want to tell you that what we did really did make a difference, because several of us were in Austin a couple years ago and then went again this year, and the level of understanding that people had and the support that we did get was incredibly more than it was 2 years ago. So I think we really did move the needle, even though it didn't
end how we wanted.
In the way we wanted. So, Yasmin, you might want to give
Sure, I'll give a highlight. And obviously I sent an email out. I do just want to start again by just expressing my deepest thanks to the board and to Donnell and Kevin and Tony, who is not here, who was very close with one local representative and was kind of helping get behind the scenes knowledge that was super helpful, and to all the board members who showed up in Austin, who gave personal gifts. Like, all those things absolutely mattered and put us in the strongest position we've ever been in. And really what it did fundamentally come down to is we got out of the Senate, but we could not get out of the House Public Education Committee. And we could not get out because we could not convince Representative Koop from Richardson, who was for 18 years on Richardson ISD school board, to be we had 5 votes and we needed 6. And she would not convert over and be the 6th vote because she was worried that it was the Richardson ISD would be negatively impacted. Richardson ISD is a kind of middle of the road in terms of percentage of free and reduced lunch students. It's not like a high poverty district. They're about ready to issue or request additional local taxation to fund some of their additional programming, which will add about another $500 per student to the revenue they're collecting. There still would have been a meaningful gap between Richardson ISD and Uplift, and on average, the charter peers, but she just couldn't get over that threshold that it would have been a negative impact to Richardson ISD, and so hence we were stuck. And so the way to fix that was to attach us to House Bill 21, which was the mega education bill of the session. And that went well in terms of getting out of the House, getting out of the Senate, and then because they were slightly different versions of the bill, what has to happen is you have to appoint a conference committee. And so the House sent over their members. Then they decided to publicly share before the Senate sent over their members. Here is our line in the sand. Lieutenant Governor, you've got this voucher program that's now become pretty narrowed down to just be special ed kids. And we will not support any version of House Bill 21 that has anything that has the term ESA or voucher in it. And so the Lieutenant Governor said, okay, I'm going to one-up you. And this is my interpretation. I'm not going to send over any Senate conferees. So we're not going to go to conference committee because there's no point. While we were at North Hills graduation, I got a text saying that the Senate was going to come to the table. And so we were hopeful because we knew they had until midnight on Sunday. And then around, 9 or 10 p.m. on Saturday, we got news that the House was unwilling to give still. So really, the Senate would have to be doing all the giving, and they're obviously both sides needed to make concessions and be flexible, and they weren't. And so it officially then did die, even though we thought there was a glimmering of a Hail Mary. And as Addie said, a Jesus take the wheel moment. And that just unfortunately did not happen. I think the positive of all of this is we are viewed as having gotten to the 1 yard line, and this falling apart on something that had nothing to do with charters. And nothing to do with the issue of facilities funding. So to Donnell's point of next session, coming back stronger, part of what makes us stronger is we have representatives who are willing to support us, who we can go back to because the story hasn't changed. And we also get to go back, even though I hate playing this card, as victims because of what happened to us, and a chance for the legislature to make it right. We were told we were put in the budget that got approved. It's just they had to get through the official legislative steps, and that did not happen. So we kind of have to learn from it and move on. And I do think that we need to continue to put pressure on our local representatives. And again, if Linda Coop's on the House Public Committee, we've got to know what our strategies are, because we had shared donors who reached out and senior community members, and it was not making a difference. And we've got to get to 6 votes in the House Public Committee, and we've got to maintain the votes we had in the Senate committee, Education Committee as well, so we can have our own standalone bill, and we don't have to be attached to another bill that has its own political agenda, which is what happened in the end. But on a positive note, We did get the expansion of the permanent school fund. You saw Stacy's chart. That clearly has value in terms of savings it provides. And so that bill was really important. And the District Charter Alliance bill was an important bill in terms of creating more incentives for Grand Prairie Uplift type partnerships. And it was really impactful to see superintendents and charter school leaders jointly testify together in both the Senate and in the House committee, something that there's not been before. So again, we did make some progress. We didn't get our big win, but we'll just keep after it next time.
Well, I think
And
that,
I'm not in the corner drinking somewhere, so it's okay.
and I think that this person to my left deserves a huge round of applause for their work that she did. We're talking about starting to craft the bill a year ago, and then getting into the strategy about how in the heck we're going to move this along, going down to hearings. Deborah, thank you also for your work in talking. The people
Dawn.
who made the phone calls.
Dawn who testified.
Dawn who testified.
Yes,
We
in
ended
front of
up
the Senate.
We ended up moving somebody to a abstain, I think, as opposed to a negative vote. So
Yeah.
I mean, so it was a huge team effort. But again, we have a terrific leader here. I truly appreciate it. So it is very
June the 12th.
Exactly, it's very important, and I think that we're about to start a new fiscal year and committee structure and things like that. So if I could ask you to send out on your own to the full board, everyone to let them know about this.
Okay.
Again, this is information that is sensitive. So
Can I just say, please, not to belabor this, but really just piling on to what Donnell said. This falls into the category to me of nothing worth having comes easy, and this is not easy work. I mean, we saw it. What Yasmin did is miraculous. I mean, she really stayed on top of it. But this is really important for our students and our teachers. I mean, this is the difference this is really teacher pay, and that's what we have to view it as. And so I encourage everybody to not just forget about the June 12th date. This is a 2-year process. I mean, I was meeting with people a year and a half, maybe not 2 years ago, but a year and a half ago. Summer before last, I was meeting with people and already just talking about it. And I think that it's really important. Everybody here knows somebody. And so I strongly recommend everybody, the people who supported us, make sure they know how much you appreciate them. And the people who didn't support us, make sure they know how disappointed you are. And just constantly be on alert for who you know that you can start talking to today. So
I'm going to send this, anybody on the board who wants to come to this meeting, we would love to have you. Because there's some things we just really need to talk about. So I will send out that invitation to everybody on the board.
and again, the trustees include all the CAC chairs. So we all know that's everybody. Very, very important. Largest group we can get. Right. Okay, on to hiring. Diana and Alice.
I'll get us plugged in. We're basically going to talk through the pre-read, so hopefully you guys have lots of questions that we can address as well.
While Diana's getting it to light up on the screen behind us, we wanted to just give you kind of a high-level overview of our hiring update. As you know, we are right in the middle of peak hiring season. We have quite a number of positions to fill. We want to give you an update on our progress toward that. One of the new initiatives, I guess, that we have is starting in March, we had Smart Recruiters, which is our applicant tracking system that we've just implemented. I wanted to give you just a little bit of information about that because the old procedure for when applicants wanted to apply took a substantial amount of time to do. Whereas the new Smart Recruiter applicant tracking system takes 2 to 3 minutes. Candidate, even at a job fair, can express interest, apply their LinkedIn account to our Smart Recruiter account, and within a minute or two, they've applied for the position, which has been wonderful for our recruiting team. So it only takes a couple of minutes. And with our Smart Recruiter portfolio, folks on the campuses, all the hiring managers can see the information in real time, and they can track applicants through the process, and they know where they are in each step of the way. Also, it automatically populates to certain job boards. So the Uplift positions are out in ways they haven't been before, in addition to our traditional job boards. And we have hiring metrics, which in a moment Diana's going to go over a screenshot of what that looks like in our Smart Recruiters. Back and forth. I wasn't. Yeah, there you go. So some of those job boards are LinkedIn. I've added to the Texas Association of School Administrators for some difficult to fill positions, Glassdoor and Indeed. In addition to the Smart Recruiter, we have our fabulous recruiters are out at job fairs all over the place. Some Tier 1 schools you see at the very top. We have some out-of-state ventures the past year, as well as looking at some specialty areas like Spanish and special ed, very, very difficult to fill positions. So this is a snapshot of the Smart Recruiter screen. I'm going to let Diana kind of talk through this a little bit more for you.
Sure. So one of the things that we really had a challenge with in our old system is getting any type of stats on what our applicant flow looks like. So at real time, we can go in now at any time to see how many people have applied, who's moving on through the interview process, how many have we hired, kind of the whole piece. So this is just a quick snapshot at a point in time last week. This also literally changes and updates real time to the minute as people are applying, which is also the really cool part about it. So you can see when we post on a new job board, you'll see it just spike up really quick, and then if we're not trying anything new, you'll see it, just kind of trickle in. So you can see up at the top, it will, at this particular point in time, which was a point in time last week, we had 2,349 applicants that the recruiters were in the middle of reviewing. We had 1,986 being reviewed, 688 interviews, and 277 offers that were out, and 98 fully hired. So all that's just through March. So again, it just updates every day. One of the things the recruiters have told us anecdotally is that the quality of the applicants is so much higher with this system. Because like Alice said, you can stand there and talk to someone and they can apply on LinkedIn using their profile in a minute or two. So we're getting a lot of people through a lot quicker. It is not specific to education, so we've had to add some other steps in the process to get transcripts and certifications and things like that. But at least we are capturing a lot more upfront. So if you haven't seen, just our whole website has been redesigned as well. So if you go to uplifteducation.org, go to the careers page. We work with Deborah's team to completely redo the careers page. So it looks a lot more modern, I guess, for lack of a better word. It looks a little more millennial friendly. So it's really cool if you haven't seen it. Go take a look at it, and the videos and testimonials and all kinds of really neat things. So it makes it so much easier for people to apply. So then, let me do a quick update then on where we are in the hiring process. So when you look at these numbers, in some ways they look a little overwhelming, but we're actually in a really good spot compared to where we've been some other years. Of course, we tend to panic a little bit because we're like, oh, it's June 1st and we still have 11% of our teacher positions vacant. That's actually in a really good spot. When you think about all the people now, where I showed on the other ones, how many people are going through the interview process and where they are in the system. Plus our principals are so busy the month of May, sometimes it's tough to get that final interview done, that final offer done. So we see a big push in June before they start doing vacations and things in July. So I'm actually feeling really good about where we are. One of the other processes we've just been finishing up, which I talk about every year at the retreat, our return, non-return process, which when we go through and ask the teachers, will you please come back next year? And they say yes or no kind of thing. Right now, we're at about a 92% with those that we ask back that are saying yes, they're coming back, which I think is great. Now we'll cross our fingers June and July that they keep that decision. We did quite a few messages the last few weeks to say, please don't change your mind because our kids are counting on you. So hopefully that's going to work over the summer. This has now been 3 summers ago. We saw a big spike in July with a lot of people changing their minds. And we had a lot more people tell us even in March that they were not going to return, which is what we would rather them say so that we could get the process moving to replace them. So I'm actually feeling pretty good, I think, about where we're positioned for the summer. So this one is just for teachers. So we're gonna have a little over 1,000 teachers going into next school year, which to me is almost frightening when you think about where we were 5 years ago and what that growth has been. But so that's overall teachers. And then when you look at all roles, again, we're trending around that 11% vacant. On the non-instructional roles, it gets a little different, especially the CMO-based roles, because people don't necessarily hire on a school year cycle. So a lot of them we open now and then we will hire within the month. So the cycles are a little bit different. And also for people who are doing their resignations, the cycles sometimes are a little different, but also feel pretty good about where we are there. So it's just shy of 2,000 total for the number of positions going into next year. Questions on those?
What's total staff?
It's, let me get it off, can't get it off the top of my head. It's 1972.
Is total Uplift staff?
Total staff, yeah. As of this particular point in time that we did this.
Then I'm confused. So we're not replacing 1,700 people.
No. So this includes everyone that was staying. So this is total staff.
Okay.
So of the total staff, we have 1,723
I see.
committed
So
to a
is
seat.
everybody. Okay,
yes,
got it. I
yes.
understand. Okay.
How many recruiters do we have?
Currently doing just teacher recruitment, we have 2, and then we have 1 position that we're in the process of hiring, so we'll have 3. There is a director of recruitment coming on board starting next week, and then we have 1 person doing non-instructional. And then that's the sourcing team. Then we have 2 that are doing the selection and placement. So we kind of split it up. We have a crew that goes out to just fill the funnel, and then we have 2 folks on the teacher side that do all the placements with the directors. All right, so then we've talked over the course of several months, and Rich has been talking a lot about the different pipelines. So this is just a reminder of all those different pipelines and what is coming into when I talked about those jobs that are already filled. So when you Teach for America, Urban Teachers, Teaching Excellence, all these that are listed, if we've already gone through the full process with them, they are in that filled category. There's a few, like Urban Teachers, we're still working with about 15 of them that we're placing. There's still probably 10 or 15 TFA we're working on placing. So even some of those vacancies will still be placed through these various pipelines.
Here's why don't we see Rice anywhere in the list?
From the partnership standpoint? Rich, do you want to talk about that?
Rice typically hasn't been a school where we've recruited from. They do have some partnerships. They have this like school leadership MBA program that I think we have a couple of leaders who have come through that, but we haven't, we have not gone down there. I know that Yes Prep and KIP, we would have to reach out to them to see if they've had any traction at Rice.
It's a much smaller program, and Yes Prep does have a partnership with Rice. I'm not sure Rice has enough scope in terms of those interested in teaching to go beyond the Houston market that they're currently in right now.
What's our starting teacher pay gap versus traditional ISDs projected to be for next year?
So for first year, we just increased it to 48, and most of the local districts are around 50, 51. I think a couple are creeping up to 52. We're very competitive. I think once we get to that 4 or 5 years, still in that 2 to 3 year, we're probably 3,000 to 4,000 still below, but so much closer than we were. We're not hearing near as much noise that people aren't accepting because of salaries we did in the past.
Do you feel like there's any targeted effort to hire Uplift teachers away for next year?
I haven't seen it.
Past?
I haven't seen it yet.
Not the same way we saw the aggressive poaching
Yeah, so
summers
3 years ago.
Summer of
Yeah.
not pleasant times. When we lost 100 teachers in 1 month, where there was like very direct poaching happening. So at least from that standpoint, I think all the work we've been doing on compensation, recognition in general, development in general, I do think that is paying off. We're also not going to sleep at the wheel and think that it couldn't happen.
And I think the other thing we have also seen in the last couple of years is a lot more stability in our leaders. I think this year we have 4 principals that are leaving. Again, that same summer, I think we had 8 or something leave. So, all research shows people stay because of who they're working for. So I think that also is making a huge difference with the retention rates.
We're literally keeping 90% of our principals. Those four make up 10%.
Do we have a staff referral conference program?
Yes.
Is that effective?
Absolutely. I don't know what the percent is right off the top of my head, but it's a large percentage of people that we hire through that program.
I heard before about 30%.
Yeah. And it's not a lot of money compared to what at least a lot of private industry does on it. The high end is $500.
So on the application, there is a referral, or who, if someone referred them, they can put the name.
Yes, and then also on this new Smart Recruiters app, there's actually a portal for an employee to go in, and it will automatically register who they are referring, so they can log in and refer a friend directly to the applications, and it tracks all that too.
Cool. Would it benefit you guys at all to have the board reach out to our alumni to support them? I mean, does
Oh,
that,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know who that would be that connection to, but
Yeah, absolutely. Tommy is the new director of recruitment that's starting on Monday. So I think it'd be great, Alice, then if you maybe do a soft introduction to Tommy, to all of you guys, because he will be starting and working on all of those partnerships and referrals as well.
great, strategy.
Any other questions?
Anything else?
Well, I would like to
All right.
say a quick thank you so much to Diana for unbelievable service that she's done. She will be stepping down at the end of June, going into a much deserved retirement. And you've seen the organization grow exponentially. You've also seen systems come and go and change, and I think we're in a great spot. The retention work that you did was obviously exceedingly important to our scholars, and I just personally can't thank you enough, and I know we all extend our thanks. So thank you.
You'll still see me around. Thank you.
Okay, we have some action items.
Okay, we'll try to, I know we're running down to the wire here. The first item on here, which is a resolution regarding expansion amendment, is taken off the agenda because we don't have to do that. This is for a change from Northeast Fort Worth to South, and TEA says we just need to send out a new notice, not a new resolution. So take that one off. The next one is a resolution regarding amendment to the Uplift Mighty preference boundary. For those of you who have been with us for a while, you might remember it was actually 2 years ago that we brought this discussion to the board, which is part of the Renaissance Heights revitalization in Southeast Fort Worth, which is going on around Uplift Mighty. And that involves really a lot of partners and a lot of different pieces to it. And Evan Smith is here from Purpose Built, who is like our quarterback and supporter for that project. And one part of the project was that it would to build mixed income housing on the land right next really to where Uplift Mighty is. And now 2 years later, we're actually at the point where that mixed income housing phase 1 is going to be completed. They are now starting to take applications for people to move into those apartments, and they'll be in the apartments probably in late August, September, would you say, Evan?
Yeah, the first building, they're about, I think, so by the end of the year, it'll be closer to full occupancy. About 300 people in total in phase 1.
So it's really exciting because it's right across the street from our school, and we're talking about putting in gates so those kids can walk across the street. As you recall, this is mixed income housing. The units, about 85% of the units will be targeted to people who are in lower incomes, with 15% of those apartments will go to, will be at market rate. We're doing they're doing an open house. Well, it's kind of information because they're not wide open, ready to go through them, to target our families, but also some of our staff to look at to see if they want to apply in our families with doing that. So in the board pre-read, I've kind of included sort of a review of the Renaissance Heights project, which Evan provided, and just can see that a lot is happening in that part. If you haven't been over to Southeast Fort Worth, it's amazing to see what has changed there. The new Y is being built. That'll be done next spring. Mitchell Boulevard Elementary, which is right on the property, it's not on the property, but right adjacent to it, which was kind of a low-performing elementary school, is now going to be a target for Fort Worth ISD to, sort of one of their turnaround schools to improve that elementary. Just to show the level of cooperation in this project, Mitchell Boulevard Elementary is not doing a pre-K because the Y is doing early childhood education through grade 4. So not to pull those kids out of the Y program, Mitchell Boulevard's not going to do a pre-K. Uplift Mighty will have a pre-K, but just 2 classrooms there. So basically what we're asking this resolution is to now take that next step to officially amend our charter to give, to establish a primary boundary for the residents who live within that area that's bounded, well, it's basically by Wichita, gosh, I should know that, Berry, and Mitchell, yeah. So the area that's, if you've seen it, it's where all the housing can be built, where everything is in that part. It's estimated that 80% of the residents in this phase 1 would qualify for free and reduced lunch. They're also estimating it's going to be 136 students that would be in the ages of 5 to 17. Frankly, the impact on Uplift Mighty will probably be limited because there will not be a huge number of slots available in Mighty. And that is partly because we have Meridian feeding over 4 sections coming over from Meridian to the 6th grade, and we'll have 3 sections coming up from Mighty Primary, so there's only going to be maybe 1 section available into 6th grade coming in that we know of, and we still have the preference for, or the exemption for siblings of currently enrolled students or staff. And at the same time, we also, with pre-K, those children are feeding into our kindergarten, and they have to meet the free and reduced lunch guidelines too. I think the main reason, obviously we support this project. This will be a draw for those apartments, and we support this project. So while I don't think it'll have a huge impact on our school, I think it's important that we're part of this community revitalization. And to the extent that some of our families move in there, it'll give them our preference too. So this resolution that was in pre-read is basically to amend our charter to designate a primary preference boundary for that area that we just talked about, defined by East Berry to the north, Wichita to the east, and Mitchell Boulevard to the west and south.
No further discussion. Do I have a motion to approve? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you. And Evan, thank you, and please express thank you to everyone in your organization. You all have been working on this for a very long time. It was exciting for me to be there at the groundbreaking, and I can't wait to be there for many years to come. So thank you.
Thank you. It's fun to be part of this, and look forward to what's ahead.
Yeah.
We're just getting started.
Right. Thank you.
I'm going to circulate this around for the governors to sign, since that's an amendment. The next resolution that I have is regarding the, I gotta get the
Child and adult care.
child and adult, no, where's that? This is an expansion, this is an expansion of the federal free lunch, the federal, free and reduced lunch program, which we operate already, obviously, in all of our schools. But in some schools now, we want to be able to offer kind of dinner for kids that are in the after-school program. And we also have a unique program at Uplift Meridian where we have a community head start within that school. Those children are not Uplift students, But if we implement this program, then we can provide food for them and get reimbursement for it too. So this resolution is just to say that Uplift is willing to support the operation of this program, and that we understand the risks and liabilities, which are no different than the lunch program we have right now, and our CMP program is familiar with this program. Are there any questions about that?
This is only in Fort Worth?
No, it'll be for the network, but right now we only have that Head Start program there, but there are other schools within the whole network that have the after-school program where they're going to do dinner. I think
So
they're
kids aren't
doing
getting
that.
picked up till 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So they like the option of being able to serve that dinner.
What kind of strain does this put on our nutrition department?
Well, basically, they'll probably staff up a little bit for the evening program, for the dinner program. For the Head Start program, it's really no different because it's within, they're located within the school, and they basically bring the meals to them. And in fact, we worked with them last year, it's just that they haven't been able to get reimbursement, so we've been billing them the full price of them, because in the Head Start program, they do family style, so they bring it and they put it in bowls and things like that.
And we won't have any storage issues since we already are kind of, in some schools, short on refrigerators and stoves or whatever they use to.
It's not that much bigger. I mean, it is like 40 kids.
Okay.
Our CNP department actually brought this forward to us.
Yes,
They are the ones
yes,
that
they're the
asked
ones who
for
want to
us to do this. Okay, so I'm assuming if they thought it would be a hardship, they would not
Yeah,
want it forward, but they are, this was pushed by them in terms of seeking this opportunity.
Great.
Hearing no further discussion, do I have a motion to approve the resolution? Second. All in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you, Ann.
Okay, then the last one, which looked like a very long pre-read for board, but a big part of it. This is a resolution approving our student records management policy. And this might have seemed like, why would we bring this at this time? Because we have student records and we've been managing them for quite some time. But what this policy does is kind of pull together our practices and the policy we've been doing, but we've had it in a lot of different places. It also kind of supports our move to electronic records so that we can say our official student records are the digital records that we have. And so if people are keeping some paper things, that's a convenience copies. The resolution on the policy is really that 4 pages that talks about also who has access to records, and then what does the student record consist of, and that's listed out there. Then the long part of it, which you can read at your leisure if you want to, is really a summary of the law as it applies to student records, which is everything from what constitutes a record, who has access to it, sort of the interplay between public records and privacy, and the federal laws on student record privacy and access to them. And again, this is really just to pull all this information in one place, in one policy, so that when we're working with those people who are in our network that are dealing with records, it's easier to pull it together and have reference to it. Any questions about that one?
Hearing no further discussion, do I hear a motion to approve the resolution as presented? Second? All in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you very much. Without anything else on the agenda except the community open forum, I see no one that is here to speak in the open forum, so we are adjourned. Thank you all.
If you want to come,
And you made it.